Hi, my name is Brianna Banda, and today I'm going to be talking about education in the United States, the historical roots. The colonial period began with Jamestown because of the first permanent English settlement in North America. Colonial schools were formed in response to this need, and they laid the foundation for many other controversials that exist today. There are different colonies like the Southern colonies, Middle colonies, and New England colonies. Moving on to the Southern colonies, you wouldn't be able to attend a public school because it didn't exist at the time. If your parents weren't wealthy, then you probably wouldn't have gone to school at all. Um, Most people that lived in the South had a hard life, and education was considered a luxury. Moving on to the Middle colonies. Religious freedom was an important reason for coming to America. Since religion played a certain role in people's lives, it was difficult to create schools that satisfied everyone. Many families in the Middle colonies created culturally influenced schools. Students often learned in their native language and local religious beliefs. Lastly, we have New England colonies. Since they were culturally and religiously, this made school goals easier to achieve. The education was viewed as the vehicle for helping people follow God's commandments and resist the devil's temptation. Education was important because it made people more righteous, industrious, resourceful, and thrifty. During the early national period, the Constitution removes formal religion from schools and establishes state responsibility. We will find out three important events that happened during the early national period. Three important events that happened during early national period was the first is principle of separation of church and state was established. Second, the legislatures removed control of education from the federal government and gave it to the states. Third is passing the Land of Ordinance of 1785. The federal government established a role for itself in public education. Courts have repeatedly upheld the principle of separation of church and state, and decisions about school and classroom policy are made by individual states and local school districts instead of the federal government. However, the federal government does play an important role in education since public schools receive federal funding. Should religion be discussed in school? It is perfectly okay for you to discuss religious topics with your students if they relate to your content or if a student asks a question or brings the topic up. Common School Movement. Schools will be organized into grade levels from elementary level. 5-year-olds will be in kindergarten and 6-year-olds will be in first grade, and so on. During the middle school and high school level, the classes will focus on different content areas. Teachers will have a designated grade level or content area to teach. Historians often describe the period from 1820 to 1865 as the age of the common man. Two important factors contributed to this. First was Andrew Jackson, the popular and down-to-earth hero of the War of 1812 was elected. Second, westward expansion provided opportunities for the poor and landless to start over. The Common School movement attempted to make education available to all children in the United States. Horace Mann, a lawyer, turned into an educator, and this played a key figure in making education available to all children. He became the leader of education in the United States. His most important legacy was the idea that public education in the form of tax-supported elementary schools, common schools, should be a right. To improve education, the school divided into grade levels, which resulted in more age-appropriate instruction and allowed content to be taught in greater depth for older students. Finally, as paper and printing presses became more common, more textbooks became available, as well as other educational materials such as paper and pens. Teachers finally had tools to help students learn. The American high school in the late 1800s was search of an identity. Then the National Education Association appointed a group called the Committee of 10 to examine the high school curriculum and make recommendations about standards, programs, and methods. The comprehensive high school attempts to meet the needs of all students. Latin Grammar School 1635 was designed to help boys prepare for ministry or law. Academy focused on practical subjects such as math, navigation, and bookkeeping, open to boys and girls. English Classical School 1821 was free secondary school for students not planning to attend college. In the 21st century, we've seen a shift in the use of technology both in and outside of classrooms. Technology we use primarily as a tool for presenting information. Today it is more commonly used to access information via the internet and communicate with others. For example, a survey conducted in 2010 found that teens send and receive an average of 50 texts per day, and adults who send texts and receive 10 per day. I have decided to show this picture of the elements of a 21st century classroom design just to show the difference that has occurred during the historical periods of education. A lot of things have changed since there has been now school shootings and other factors to consider when being in a classroom and the design of a classroom. Now, present, there is online learning and there has been in-person learning, but you have to wear your mask. Education in high school has changed abruptly because now everything is online and it's not paper or textbooks.